Welcome back to Factorio. Last time when we left off, we had just to Factorio. Last time when we left off, we had just barely gotten some power going, and we came back up here to see that we were out of fuel. So we're gonna do a few things today, including see what we can do about getting rid of this early burner phase and getting into a little bit of automation. We're not going to be able to do too much automation quite yet, but in the next few episodes, we'll have that coming along pretty well. So let's go ahead and fuel these things up a bit and grab a little bit more coal. And we're going to go ahead and come back down here and remember what we had going on down here. So we had just barely gotten into a little bit of power with some science. We don't have any more science created at the moment, so let's first go ahead and create a couple of more sets of science packs. We'll grab some rocks as well, just while we're waiting for those science packs to craft. And what we want to do today to focus on getting a little bit of automation going, we did barely unlock the actual automation research last time, which gives us the ability to create assembling machines. The assembly machines are the key to having the system create stuff for us so that we don't have to do everything in our pockets over here. So, that said, we also want to work toward a few other technologies. I had mentioned, if we're playing a death world, you want to go into military really early, even possibly before automation in some cases. That said, I don't expect an attack very soon, but we're going to go ahead and grab that too. We're going to grab turrets first, just in case. So then we need to go ahead and put a few science packs into that so that it can start going. While we take a look at this, or while those remain crafting, I want to kind of discuss our next phase here. So in order to get out of where our burners are are pulling everything out of the ground and putting it in furnaces, we want to automate this a little bit better. So what we need for that are electric miners, these the electric mining drills. And also, we want to move that around, so we need some of these transport belts. So what we're going to do, for now, we're going to go ahead and go back up and grab some more metal. We're going to put that back in there first. Let's double check and make sure we have coal in here. Yeah, we do, but you know what? I'm going to top it off just because you don't ever want to run out of power. So now, we want to decide how we want to get. We have a bunch of stone. I grabbed a little bit of stone, so I was gonna go grab stone, but we're okay there. So what we need to figure out is how to get this out of the ground in a much more efficient way, and get it down to somewhere where we can start doing something with it. Personally, I think I like this area down here, maybe even down here for our initial, it's kind of like large scale crafting base. The reason I like that is because there's cliffs here that are going to constrain us. We can eventually destroy cliffs. Is one reason I don't like to play with cliffs, because all they are is just kind of an impedance in the way. But yeah, again, like I say, on the first episode, I wanted to do this in a kind of a vanilla way, like a way that if you're just starting in this game, or even if you've played it a few times, but you're just kind of playing with defaults, this is the experience you get. So we get cliffs. So anyway, I like the fact that we could probably build our what I call our kickstart base in this area here. And that is essentially going to build us all of the stuff that we need to build our real base somewhere bigger, which may end up coming over here and over here. But we'll figure all that out in another episode. In the meantime, we're going to go ahead and grab a little bit more military. And we're going to fill these back up. I have been just using the Z key in the early last episode to put just a few at a time. I'm using the control right click now to put larger swaths in. But we need a little bit more iron. We're doing okay on iron and copper, but we're going to need a little bit more. So we're going to make another copper, and I'm going to say 2 more iron. So the thing is, I don't want to build too big right now because I'm a little concerned that we have so many red dots around us, and I do not want the red to get to them before we get a little bit in a little bit better position here. You'll see a lot of people will just go huge from the beginning, and that's fine if you don't mind the attacks or if you don't mind getting, you know, a few things destroyed. Usually I don't, but again, I'm trying to show kind of a good way of doing it, a good start, so you don't get overrun and obliterated and frustrated because it's no fun to die a bunch of times in a row, right? So anyway, that said, we now have some resources to build a few of these electric mining drills, and notice it builds a bunch of stuff in your pockets as well, including copper wire to build electronic circuits, and then it uses those electronic circuits to build the rest of it. And it had already built the gear wheels. Notice the second set of those 5, it's going to build gear wheels, copper, cables, and electronics. So if we happen to build those electronic circuits in our inventory to begin with, then we would have had those on hand. Same thing with the iron gear wheels. So now that I've crafted a few of those, I'll show you here in a moment that we can craft another 1 or 2 of these without waiting for all of it to craft. So we'll take a look at that here in a second. But in the meantime, we want to use the ones that we have to start building out a little extraction point here. So we will expand this, but for now I'm just going to kind of grab a few things like that. And we also, like I was mentioning, need some belts, so we will use those soon. We also need to power this. This will turn out okay because we will pretty soon rip all this stuff up. So for now, I'm just going to do something a little bit like this. And where's our nearest power? I don't even think we've run power all the way up here. So we're going to have to go do that. I got a little bit ahead of myself. So notice how those were blinking yellow, right? It's just kind of like this. This down here is blinking red. There's no fuel. Those other ones didn't have electricity. So anything that's powered off of electricity gives you that little yellow, hey, we can't do this right now, icon. We're going to go ahead and build up a little bit more energy as well. So I like this right here. We're going to go ahead and pull this up, and then we'll come back down and put some power into, or sorry, some science packs into that research. But for now, I want to get this stuff going while we're crafting all of that. And that is about where we want to be. It's pretty close. It's not too far off. And again, if you forgot how we do this, you can just, click, left click, and then just walk, and it will put these poles at the maximum distance. Notice how it's putting them 2 away. See how when you get close, we'll zoom in. When you get close, the power cables, the copper cable there, the power lines, will link if you can place it. So when we're doing this in bulk here, just kind of wandering with it, you can see how it lines up. And this isn't perfect, but we'll fix that in the near future. I want to build a couple more power lines because we used quite a bit of that. We don't have to do it quite yet, but we're going to need to get some more wood up here for that too. But in the meantime, I want to show you what we're going to be doing. The other mini game of Factorio is deleting everything that you've accidentally placed in the wrong block. There's a couple of updates coming soon that are going to help with that, but in the meantime, it's a mini game you get to play. So I want to bring it a little bit below this, because we're going to be mining this entire area out, right? All of the iron, all of the copper, all of the coal. So I don't want to put the belts on top of what we're going to be mining out. It doesn't super matter because you can fix it. As with everything else in Factorio, very, very few things are permanent. You don't lose resources for very many things. That said, I just kind of like to try to be as efficient as possible. So we're going to weave this back down, just kind of back down here, and then actually I probably should have brought it down here. We'll fix that. But in the meantime, I want to go ahead and come back down here and get a little bit more science. I'm going to build a little bit more too. Again, we're going to automate all this, but I want to make sure all this stuff is ticking. One thing with Factorio is the more you can have going on at the same time, the better. So I want to make sure all of this is happening while we're doing other things. So we want to keep that research rolling. And again, in the future, it'll be much easier because we won't have to keep walking back and forth between everything. This, as we build this, it's going to feed into smelters, which you're going to see here pretty soon. And then all of this is going to be building out iron while we're wandering off doing other things. And then that eventually that iron and copper will go into some facilities to make those science packs. And then those science packs will be automatically fed into machines, or basically that lab down there, a set of those labs. And all of that is going to build things while we're just kind of out doing our own thing. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and fix this and bring this over a little bit better. Now, I didn't really want to do that because we now have a bunch of junk in our inventory here. You can control right click to feed half of that stack into these, and then these mine just a little bit slower than the furnaces can handle, so this will actually mine forward a little bit faster now with that in there. It doesn't really matter, it's not a huge deal. But if you do have extra stuff in your inventory, you can also always put it into the machines that process that stuff. So we are now to a point where we have iron flowing, but as you notice, we're building everything in our pockets, right? And we don't necessarily want to do that. So I want to grab a few of these assembly machines. Oh, and notice since I created, I'll show you down here. So we have all this stuff, right? It's building gear wheels. So we wasted our gear wheels, but that's fine. Well, we didn't waste them. They went into some of the earlier science. But notice how I have electronic circuits in my hand. So if I were to build 5 of these, I would need 15 electronic circuits, assuming my math is right. I'm not going to double check it right now. Yep, 15. So when I right-click that to build 5, notice it took those 15 green circuits away. It's going to build enough iron gear wheels to build the rest of that, but it took the rest of it from our inventory. If we were to cancel that, it would give us all of those resources back. So we got those electronic circuits back and then the iron plate for that. But we want to build those because we are going to be manufacturing some things that we want. So the pattern that I generally use, I'm going to get rid of those real fast so that we can build the rest of those. And then I will show you the pattern that I like to use for this. So what we want to build here, we want to build belts. We're going to need lots and lots of belts. So our first thing here is going to be belts. And I kind of like this little pattern here that goes like this. It hangs off the corner. Okay, so I'm getting ahead of myself again. To build a belt, so we've noticed that we've seen this before. We need an iron plate and an iron gear wheel. So that means we want to build an iron gear wheel that we can feed into this. That also means that we want some inserters. One thing that I do, I leave a couple spaces. We will fill these 2 up, and then I put the inserters next. I'm going to keep the copper or the coal here for a moment, and we'll take a look at that here in a little while. But the reason that I do that is I just like my bar a very specific way, and I'll kind of show you how I lay that out and why I lay that out as we build that out. But for now, we want to be able to feed iron into here and into here because this also takes iron plate and iron gear wheels. This iron gear wheel takes iron, right? So if we were to give it 2 iron it would build an an iron gear wheel. Then if we were to give it another iron, it builds us 2 belts, right? Now we can take those 2 belts and we can use those 2 belts. So to automate that, what we can do is this. And I can just place 2 stacks. I control left clicked those stacks and they go automatically into there. Okay, so it's gonna build copper. I keep saying copper. I've been playing Vintage Story, so I'm hunting for copper. So sorry about that. My brain's a little off in that regard. So, but this will feed the iron plates and iron gear wheels in, and it will build the iron. I'm sorry, the belts. So the cool part here is then all we need is an output box. Oops, I did not. That's why I was trying to figure out why it wasn't working. It's because I put it 1, didn't notice how it was 1 below. So this could not reach that box when it was down here. It fed into that because this was right there, but this one could not reach it. So let's fix that. Now it will work properly, unless it wants to make another liar of me. There we go. Now we have copper gear wheels going, and they're getting fed into here as well. You'll see iron gear wheels. I said copper again. Iron is getting fed into. Iron gear wheels are getting fed into. It pulls it back out and puts it into here. Then if you go into a chest, you can limit the amount of inventory spaces that it can stick things in. So if you click this red thing, the red X there, that icon will allow you to kind of artificially shorten these. So now it will only be able to put that many sets of stacks of belts in there. Each belt is stacks to 200, so that'll give us like 800 or so. Again, math. That may be wrong. So now we have the stone walls. I do want military research next, which will give us access to the submachine gun, which is far better than our little pistol here. It's okay if we get hit by these biters now, we will survive barely, but it won't be really pretty. So that said, we have this going, and we're gonna make a few other items here, but I want to get over here because I figured we would have a lot of fuel problems. I'm just gonna stick half of the items in there, so I just control right clicked all that over. Now we're kind of wasting this, right? We've got to get that going, but I don't want to build this stuff myself. See, while we were gone, this thing has already made 22 more belts for us, right? So that's pretty good. We created a bunch of these. Let's start using some. One other thing that we're gonna need a lot of is the ammo cartridges. So I like to build those. If you shift right click, it'll copy. Notice how now when we point to this unassigned assembly machine, it's got a green, kind of a green border around this one. That means if we since we have shift right clicked to copy, we can now shift left click to paste. And that's a really handy thing when you're building a bunch of these together. So keep it in mind. They were going to do this one a little bit different, but very close to the same. Instead of offsetting like this, because we don't have to feed this into each one, we only have to feed it iron. Each one gets iron, and they both put the same thing out. So we can do as a little bit slightly different orientation here. The cartridges, you can see they're 1 of 4, so they take 4 iron plate per cartridge per magazine. So I just went ahead and tossed 4 in there. Again, note we will need a lot of ammo. Things will hit the fan in not too long. Right now we're still doing pretty well because again, our you can see though our pollution is bigger than it was. It's getting closer to over here. If we were to have tossed another 10 of these things down and a few more of these, we would have gotten an attack by now. So that's why I'm just kind of, again, I'm wanting to talk through some of this stuff. So I'm wanting to keep that a little bit simple and in a way that we're not going to get a bunch of enemies on us. So we want to build a couple of other things. So one of those things is going to be electronic circuits. As you notice that we use a lot of electronic circuits for all of the things that we're going to be using. So in order to build an electronic circuit, we have a similar thing. We have iron plate and copper cable. Well, copper cable needs copper. Okay, well that's pretty easy, right? Not too hard. So we'll go ahead and do the same thing. We put the power pole right there. We can get a few more inserters. We can direct feed that in, we can feed that in, and we can feed that in. But now, well, how do we do that? Because it takes iron and copper. Well, luckily, we can put two different things, or many different things, in a chest. So we can actually feed this whatever we need. As you'll notice, it actually takes one iron plate and 1.5 copper plates to build this. So you can see down there. So our ratio is 2 to 1. So I put 100 iron in there and 200 copper, and that should give us pretty much an exact match. Again, the exact match doesn't matter too much, especially in the early phase. But again, I just kind of like to do it when we can. We may not always care about that, and that's fine. But for now, it's an easy ratio, and that's one I do remember. So I like to toss the right ones in. It's also easy to do because all you have to do is toss two copper per iron. So we'll go ahead and limit that. But for now, we'll grab a few of those things out. We'll grab some iron, and we'll grab some more of these. And we're going to go ahead and fill this back up. And we will try to quickly, this episode's getting a little long, but we're going to go ahead and see if we can get... Okay, that's pretty good. I'm just kind of lining up based on the outline of this ore patch, right? So I'm going to try to mine as much of it as I can out, but not too much because we don't need a huge amount of copper, especially early on here. But this we're going to go ahead and do a similar thing with. And in the next episode, we will use those. And I'm just going to kind of set that up similar to how I have over here. The last thing that I want to do in this episode, I want to grab a couple of these turrets. Notice these are pretty expensive. They take 20 iron plate, 10 copper plate, and 10 iron gear wheels. So notice down there total raw 40 plates and 10 copper plates. So those are expensive, but they're very useful. Because what we can do now with this is we can stick him right there. We can give it, I don't know, let's say 10 ammo magazines. And now this guy, well, let's turn the pollution off. I remember the minimap icons up there by the minimap. Those toggle the various overlays. So we take the pollution off so we can see this better. Now see, this is the turret coverage overlay. When we toggle that on and off, we can see our actual turret coverage. So now if any of these grumpy, red, angry things come our direction, as long as they come into this area, well, this guy is going to take care of them. So we want to, military targets and anything that pollutes a lot are your main targets for the enemies that we will see fairly soon. So that's just kind of keep that in mind. This area right here pollutes a lot. We actually need a few more turrets, but we will worry about that next time. I just want to get a few more belts working here, a little bit more ammo in that regard, and this is still working on those, so that's actually okay. Let's put that whole other, we'll put some in. Okay, so we're good there. What we want to, let's go ahead and put the rest of these science packs in. We'll just build one more. But it's very close to finished. We actually didn't put the entire stack, it looks like, of the previous set in. And I got distracted, so we didn't have those working, which is not great. Oh, it was flashing. It was already done. So now let's go ahead and go into the next block of logistics. So we'll fire this off before we call this a day. This gives us underground belts and splitters, which we will take a look at next time because they're very useful with the smelting arrays that I like to use. We are currently out of electricity. Notice if we hadn't come down here, we would have lost power on all this stuff pretty quick. The other thing that I want to do here is make sure, again, remember, military targets, and I don't think we put down a radar either. Let's do that. So military targets are turrets, radar, these little radar dishes. We'll take a look at what he does in the next episode as well. But notice here we can now see a pretty big area around that radar. So what it does active and passive scanning. So it's actually going to give us any, if any of these big angry red things come in here, we will actually see that if we're on the map or the mini map here, we could see it. As we expand that, we could actually see what that big angry red thing is if we had a radar down here somewhere. Well, again, we will be doing all of these things in the episodes to come. The other thing that it does is it passive scans. Notice this it just uncovered this. For a moment, we can see an active scan of that. Notice how it disappears, and now we just get a passive scan. So we would be able to see if that had any ore in it or whatever. We would be able to see the size of that ore patch. What kind of resources we would get for it. So these are very important and very useful. And as is, we want to go ahead and make this guy more useful as well. Put 10 ammo in here. So now if any of those biters come, they're going to hit the military target, which is the radar. Then they'll hit pollution next, which is, pollution. But he is going to hopefully defend all this. Granted, one turret is not going to do too much in the long run, but it's good enough for now. The other piece, well, we just got done researching. Oh, I didn't trigger the research. So let's go ahead and start the logistics research. That was kind of strange. I must have got distracted by trying to fuel that up. So, okay, so that's all fueled, and we have pretty good production. I would guess in the next episode we're going to have to beef all of this stuff up. But that's the name of Factorio. You build more so that you can build more. As is, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was useful and that you're learning. And I hope I can provide a little bit of entertainment as well. That said, this is the end of today's episodes. We're out of time. I will catch you tomorrow in the next one. Thanks. Have a good day.